Hello everyone, I am Alan Costa, and today I will show you a hands-on session about a very practical issue that happens quite frequently, which many professionals often have doubts about: how it works when you have provisionals made before surgeries, custom healing abutments made before surgeries. This is indeed a very common doubt. Whenever we post this on social media, people are constantly asking, but Alan, how do you exactly make the custom healing abutment before the surgery? And do you actually have to insert the implant a bit deeper into the bone structure? How do you know exactly when you need to stop with this dental implant so that it perfectly matches the planning done in the software, precisely as intended? So here I am going to show you a practical example, right? Here we have an E in this little model we have here. I will show you as if it were a simulation of a patient's mouth. Where do we have it? This high-quality model here was printed with advanced 3D printing technology using model resin from MakeTech. So both the model printing and the gum printing simulating the artificial gum and the gum resin in this case. We have here the material made for the surgical guide. Therefore, this surgical guide was made with BioGuide. A 3D print of this surgical guide was made with BioGuide. The same custom healing abutment that we have here, which you are seeing in this part here, is indeed the custom healing abutment that was also actually made with the BioGuide printing, okay? And here, in this particular example, we demonstrate a BioCrown crown, where we have this BioCrown crown. And this specific BioCrown crown is like this. It really is like so. It truly appears as such. Without makeup, and here we have a crown with makeup, but they are the same crown with the same design. Only one is a bio crown without makeup, and here we have a bio crown with makeup. So I will actually show you here what exactly a real workflow in a patient's mouth would look like. So assuming that we think of this as a patient's mouth, what did we do in the context of a typical dental procedure to achieve a result like this? Obviously, you did guided surgery planning, acquired the patient's exams, a computed tomography, an intraoral scan, and after that you send it to a planning center, or you did the planning yourself in the software, and you are going to do the digital planning of this guided surgery. After you have planned the guided surgery in the implant planning software, you can export the meshes from the guided surgery planning software, and in a CAD software such as ExoCAD, for instance, you can plan the design of a crown, that is the CAD of a crown, to make a provisional, or you can do the CAD, the design of a custom healing abutment. This involves the process of the necessary steps to achieve the desired outcome. In the class we talked about here on the MakerTech YouTube channel, I explained a detailed and specific clinical case where you can follow along on the YouTube channel, where I showed a clinical case, a clinical application of this. So when you do this planning in the software, you export it to a CAD software like ExoCAD, for example, and you will do this planning. You export the meshes that come from the implant planning software, and you have all the meshes such as the implant positioning, the scan body, and also the root segmentation. And this segmentation of the root that we have in the software will help us design the ideal profile of this provisional crown or the custom healing abutment, so that it has the exact shape of the emergence profile of the tooth you are going to extract, or if you are going to partially leave this tooth in the socket shield technique, for example. And then in this way, after you essentially create the CAD of this healing abutment or this provisional, you will basically materialize this healing abutment, this provisional. How? You can do this by milling and using milling machines, or you can have a much lower cost with still high quality materials and use printed materials such as the ones that I have already explained to you in detail and which I will show you here in detail. So if a guide after being planned was made using 3D printing, and then we are working with any system here, the idea is not to talk about the system, but about the technique. So it doesn't matter which system you are using, the guided surgery system you are using, think that it fits into any guided surgery system. I am using anyone here, let's say, and I am using this guide. When I use this guide, imagine that I go into the patient's mouth and extract the tooth. Of course, here the profile is already conditioned because it is not a real patient. So we are simulating the use of a non-real patient here. So if you did the planning, you have the guide, and you are going to start the patient's surgery. Then you will start the patient's surgery, following all the technical steps of the guided surgery related to the kit you're using. Then you will do all the milling of this kit, which is what is shown in this image. Let's suppose this is the last drill we are using, the last milling drill for the implant I'm working on. So I will do all the milling. After you do the milling of the implant, you will proceed with the installation of the implant. So here we have a replica of the implant, okay? And you are going to perform this implant installation. The purpose of this course is not to discuss step-by-step technical aspects of the surgery. I want to talk to you starting from the implant installation. So from the installation of the implant, how do you have a provisional that is pre-made, a custom healing abutment also pre-made? How do you fit this after the surgery? So imagine the following. I did the milling of this implant. I am currently going to install this implant. I take the ratchet and I am precisely installing my implant. I locked my implant and installed it. Then I did the installation of this implant, and now I have the position of my implant. When you know in the implant system you are using, there is an indexing. This indexing is the little ball you see there on the keys. And this indexing you are seeing there with the little ball, you will see this indexing, and it has to, normally this little ball has to be facing buccal. So you turned it towards the buccal side, installed the implant there. I'm going to press here to show. Installed the implant, it was turned towards the buccal side. You are installing the implant with the contra angle or ratchet. The implant has been installed. Now we definitely have the implant placed in the region of the tooth that you extracted or partially left. And now we are going to adapt the provisional. And that's what I want to show you here. When you have an implant and you installed the implant in the region, you installed this implant, imagine what I mentioned earlier. This indexing you have with the key turned to the buccal side, as I showed here, the dot turned to the buccal side, this same indexing you have there. You also have here on the titanium base, as you have seen in this specific instance, as I mentioned earlier. So I don't know if I will be able to show it here in the video, but look, there's a little tooth here, which is the indexing we have. This indexing right here, look, it coincides exactly with this small little dot we have here on the key, and it turned towards the vestibular. We know that this indexing will be turned towards the vestibular. So when I have this indexing turned towards the vestibular, and I have my pre-made healing abutment, and I have a healing abutment, this healing abutment also shows me a small ball on the vestibular side. Where this small ball is, you can see it has a little flat part, a small disc on the vestibular side, and this disc, this small ball, I know I will have to leave it turned towards the vestibular. Look, I left it turned towards the vestibular, okay? If I left it turned towards the vestibular, that little ball with the small tooth inside, I know that this is the face I need to leave turned towards the vestibular. Understood? So this applies the same way when I have, for example, a temporary prosthesis. So if I have a temporary prosthesis, my tooth is turned towards the little tooth here, the indexing, the index that locks the prosthesis so it doesn't rotate in this cylinder, it is turned towards the vestibular, as you can very clearly see. So if it is facing the vestibular side, when I place my temporary crown here in this region, it will be the same. Let me find the point here. It will fit exactly the same way right here in this vestibular part here, and it will lock right here in this small little ball. And then once you go to the implant and install this implant, here I am just doing a demonstration, but this titanium base that we have here, which is cemented, you will cement it there on the titanium base, the crown that you will cement on the titanium base. The same thing you have here on the customized healing abutment, just like you can see here. You have a customized healing abutment, and then this customized healing abutment will be turned towards the vestibular, and this is the vestibular face, and this is the vestibular face of this tooth. Specifically, in this particular case, as you can see, this is the vestibular face of this tooth. if you left this indexing turned towards the vestibular, when you go to install this crown, and this is the moment you arrive and install this crown here, when you screw it in, let's suppose this design that we make here in the CAD software, your prosthetist will do it, or the plane center you are working with will do it, they will inform you which titanium base was used in your planning. Dr. Allen, the titanium base used in your planning is 0.8 mm high. So if this titanium base is a 0.8 mm high base, you will take this titanium base, you are not going to cement it yet, you will fit it inside your crown, just like I am doing here in this specific case, and when you fit this crown very carefully onto the titanium base, you will take this set and you will test it exactly in the patient's mouth, precisely in the correct position as demonstrated. And then at this particular moment you do this specific test, you will see exactly if this titanium base you are installing is consistent with the level you planned for your case. And look here, it is not screwed in yet, right here, precisely. I'm placing the titanium base, screwing it in, and now I have the temporary crown installed currently. You see, I installed my implant, positioned the indexing towards the vestibular, which is the little ball, took the titanium base, checked the indexing facing the vestibular, and here I have this crown where the vestibular position exactly matches the internal vestibular face of my implant. So in this way, everyone thinks the following, right? Well, Alan, but how am I going to keep this placement of my titanium base here, you know? I mean, actually, how am I going to know that this vestibular face of the titanium base is really, truly, indeed, actually turned towards the vestibular? You know exactly where it is because you have that precise indexing of the titanium base in the specific cementable area securely inside the prosthesis or device. And then everyone asks, of course, but do I have to remember which side of the index is facing the vestibular? And what if I cement it outside the mouth and do it in a way that it's actually rotated? For example, you know, just as an example, if I don't catch that little ball, that locking mechanism there, you know, if I take, for example, the close locking, because on this titanium base that you see here, it has 3 little notches here. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, oops, sorry. Just you have 1, 2, 3. So this means that any of these 3 that you cement the little teeth on this titanium base, it's this little tooth here. As inside the implant, there are 6 indexings, 6 positions. If you look at the key here, it has 6 indexings. One, 2, and so on until you reach 6. If you left this ball facing vestibular, it means you have 3 fitting options in the 6 indexings. So this one, next, another, rotated the titanium base, another. For example, in this case, specifically as an illustration, in other words, to elaborate. So it doesn't matter, folks, if you cement this titanium base outside the mouth, even if you don't remember exactly which tooth it was, which one of the 3 teeth it was, it doesn't matter at all. Any of the 3 teeth you cement will be perfectly fine, okay? Just make sure to cement it properly and securely. For instance, whichever of the 3 you cement in the oral cavity, it will be turned towards the vestibular. Did you fully understand thoroughly that? Another frequently asked question people often repeatedly ask. And remember, this one I made is a 0.8 mm titanium base, okay? Then everyone always asks me, Alain, but what if by any chance I have to take my implant and sink it a little deeper into the tissue? They worry about the potential complications and the steps involved in such a procedure. Here we are talking about the lower one, right? But if this lower one lets you go deeper with the implant or change the implant, let's suppose you planned for a 10 mm implant and you buried it, achieved the torque, but you would like to sink it further and there's the nerve. What are you going to do? You are going to replace the implant with a shorter implant. If replacing it with a shorter implant and your case was designed with a 0.8 mm titanium base, you will need to know if you will lose the temporary prosthesis and the customized healing abutment. It won't. The only thing you will need to use is just a higher titanium base, one of 1.5 mm, one of 2.5 mm, one of 3.5 mm. So for example, if you planned a case for an 8 mm implant and the design of your titanium base is 0.8 mm, and for some reason you had to sink this implant deeper to get a bit more torque, and you sunk this implant around 1 mm more or less, so it was an 8 mm implant. You placed it according to your guided surgery plan. But when inserting your implant, due to torque issues, and if the case allows, if the nerve is far enough for you to do this, and you install this implant 1 mm deeper, what will you do? You will take the next titanium base, which in this case would be a 1.5 mm high titanium base. So here we have a titanium base on this healing abutment, which is a titanium base with a height of approximately 1.5 millimeters. So if for some reason I sank this implant 1 millimeter deeper, I will take the titanium base of the healing abutment and install it to get this positioning, a higher titanium base, to have this positioning of the fit all the way to the end, okay? Another very important thing I want to share with you is this. Everyone asks me and says, Alain, I always have to make a slight adjustment to this little ball, a micrometer here and a micrometer there. This is normal. This happens in surgery. That's why I don't suggest you cement the titanium base. You test without the titanium base cemented. It fits on the healing abutment or the temporary prosthesis. Because this fine adjustment that you have to make, just a little bit this way, a little bit that way, you have to make this fine adjustment. Look at this cool example that just happened in my case, for instance. Can you see this little ball we have here on the vestibular side? Can you see that this healing abutment is a bit like this? So I have to adjust this healing abutment and turn it a little more to get it right. Do you see this? So this is really cool that this happened here, because I will show you in practice how to fix this. And look how very interesting. How do you make this correction? You just put the key back in, right? And see that my little ball, it is here on the vestibular side, but if you draw a perpendicular line here on the key, my little ball is like this. So I need to adjust my key so that it comes a little more this way. What are you going to do? You will take the implant extremely slowly and very carefully make this fine adjustment with just a tiny turn over there. I will precisely turn it. I turned. See, it was such a subtle thing that you might not have even noticed what I did. But it's just a small adjustment. I won't have to turn it a quarter turn. I won't have to make a full turn. It's a small adjustment that I have to make to ensure that this healing abutment or temporary prosthesis ends up fitting correctly and staying exactly in the position as I planned. And now, when you try the healing abutment, you can see that this ball here, which was supposed to be facing vestibular, has become more vestibularized because I had to adjust the key a little more, and now this healing abutment is perfect. Can you see that the healing abutment is still just a little bit outside the gum? Can you see it slightly? This can also happen, folks, where you might need to make this adjustment, this fine tuning during the surgery. And then this fine adjustment is not about turning it down a full turn many times. Usually you give it an extra quarter turn. So here it is just fitted. I will continue with the simulation here for you to see. I want to mention I have a 1.5 titanium base. My case was planned with a 0.8 titanium base. So 0.8 would be this one here. So if I place this particular component here on the healing abutment, I will have a significantly better fit for my key, and I will have a much better fit in my specific case. This 0.81 that is currently here on the healing abutment on the temporary will ensure a more precise and accurate fit. So in order to do this, I can either switch to a shorter titanium base if my system has one, or as I mentioned to you, I want to make my healing abutment fit a little more snugly. On the gum, I want to make it a bit more adapted. What can I do? I'll definitely give my implant a few more turns, of course. If I allow it, I'm not making a full turn, a bit. I'm giving a quarter turn in my case. So if I'm giving a quarter turn in my case and now I'm going back, remember that the healing abutment was a little bit out. And now I will put my healing abutment back and check if it is better aligned with what I aim for in terms of positioning, slightly puffing up the gum, and achieving the ideal placement. I'm making a fine adjustment because I thought it was slightly rotated on the healing abutment. I'm making a fine adjustment. Just one more little thing. Remember, I gave it a quarter turn. A quarter turn won't lower an implant by 1 millimeter. I'm just adjusting here because I want this customized healing abutment to fit as snugly as possible in the gum. So I haven't screwed in yet, it's just fitted. But look how the situation with the healing abutment is already more at the level of the gum. This adaptation is already better. So this healing abutment, once it's done, yes, I like it. Now I like it. This is exactly what I want to do. I went ahead and did the cementation, and I'll talk to you about it. I did the cementation, and look what I have here. I have a better positioning of my customized healing abutment. There's still a tiny bit of a neck here, but it's a personal mannequin model, not a real case. But if you think there's still a little something that needs to be improved, then slightly lower the implant by another quarter turn, go to the next notch, and remember, you have 6 notches here to get to the next position in this implant system we're using. So you have the possibility of finding the next steps, the next points, so you can continue with your case and gather additional information. So many people then frequently ask about this part, the question of cementing this titanium base or the temporary prosthesis. How are you planning to cement this titanium base or the temporary prosthesis? You can easily do this cementation with any high-quality resin system that you are currently working with to ensure optimal performance. If you are working with BioCrown, which is what we have here, you will use resin cement for cementation because BioCrown belongs to the composite resin family, so it is not acrylic resin. This belongs to the composite resin family. From the composite resin family, and you use it, you will cement it as if you were cementing material from the composite resin family. So if you have a milled resin block or something like that, or a printed resin like this, you will use any resin cement and proceed technically with the cementation exactly as you do with the cementation of a resin, specifically, for example. So these are the steps you actually decide on. Remember that you cement this crown outside the mouth, and it will have indexing, as I mentioned, always in 3 positions. And no matter how much I rotate it, I still won't lose this indexing. Then you cement it. After cementing, remove the excess, light cure it, or if not using a dual cure cement, you can let it cure on its own or use the light. It's up to you. And if you are cementing a healing abutment, here I use a BioGuide. So to cement the healing abutment, I use the same resin cement, but if you prefer, you can use flow resin, or you can use the entire Hemospon Pater line from the Makira group for cementing, which is what I use. I definitely use the Pater Flow from absolutely Makira group for cementation because they are all from exactly same family, and you will be able to easily cement your case. Hey everyone, so that was today's tip on using the basis of customized healing abutments, prefabricated in detail and thoroughly before surgery, the surgical guides and the temporary prostheses, all of which you can have ready in advance and step by step before the surgery. And you saw if I have a customized healing abutment made before the surgery, I basically have to adapt it to my titanium base. I won't have to keep doing relining. I won't have to spend time dealing with mess and acrylic and stuff during the surgery because it's already prepared in advance. So I finish my surgery much cleaner, much faster, and more efficiently. And that saves me money because I will have less work time and will work in a much cleaner and safer environment since everything is pre-made and in a much more organized manner. And often you are surprised because you think all of this is going to cost much more. But when you do the math and see that your clinical time is the most expensive part of your clinical routine, and you start being able to handle more cases in less time, that's when you really start making money. I hope you enjoyed the tip we shared today. And if you have any questions, just send them to us and we are here to help. A big hug to everyone. Caption Adriana Zanotto, the well-known